Okay, fine, sir. We are live now. Now we are going to start our webinar formally. Before starting, I would like to say something about introductory speech in front of the audience. So, good afternoon, everybody. Dear Professor Vivek Kumar from India and Professor Boru Islam from Bangladesh, Rabindra University, Bangladesh, and about 3,000 audience or participants from different countries of the world. I would like to wish you a very good afternoon. And we have the scholar from India, Professor Vivek Kumar, is ready to deliver a lecture on globalization and youths in South Asia, challenges and opportunities. First of all, I would like to introduce our honorable resource person and speaker, Professor Vivek Kumar. Professor Vivek Kumar is the Professor of Sociology, Chairperson, Center for the Study of Social Systems, School of Social Sciences, Jawaharlal Nehru University, India. He is also the coordinator of Global Studies Program of the University of 6 universities of the world, like Humboldt University, Germany, Cape Town University, South Africa, and etc. He is also the Ambedkar Chair Professor of Sociology. It is instituted by Ministry of Empowerment and Social Justice, Government of India. He is also the visiting Associate Professor of the Department of Sociology, Columbia University, New York, USA. He is also the visiting faculty of Humboldt University, Germany. He is also the visiting professor of different universities of India like Pune University, Jammu and Mumbai universities. Professor Kumar was also invited to deliver Dr. Ambedkar Memorial Lectures by the University of British Columbia and York University. Not least but not the last but not the least, he has supervised 35 MPhil students and 31 PhD students. It's a big achievement, we think. So we are very sure that he is a scholar in sociology background, and he is the author of Caste and Democracy in India, A Perspective from Below. Professor Vivek was called to Planning Commission and Ministry for Empower and Social Justice. He was the chairman of subgroup on awareness generation, statistics, monitoring, innovation, and research for the formulation of the 12th five-year plan 2012 to 17 by the Ministry of Empowerment and Social Justice, Government of India. Dr. Kumar was a member of the Committee on Midterm Appraisal of the Tribal Subplan and Scheduled Caste Subplan for the 11th five-year plan constituted by the Planning Commission of India. So this is the very short biography of Professor Vivek Kumar. He is a really genius to me, I think, and I would like to invite Professor Vivek Kumar to deliver a very rigorous speech on today's topic, and we are going to Professor Vivek Kumar, please.
Thank you, Bijan. Bijan, and I really thank my moderator, very humble person, Bijan, that he invited me to speak on this topic. And of course, BK School of Research for organizing this webinar. And of course, professor from Ravindra University. Thank you so much. And thank you, my audience, for being there. So the topic is very simple and straight: globalization and youth in South Asia, challenges and opportunities. You know, as a social scientist, I'm a sociologist by practice. So my way of tackling the thing is that usually a good teacher is that who defines the variables in the title of the topic itself. So there are, three very important variables in my title of the lecture. One is globalization, second is youth, and third is South Asia. Now, if you start that how to conceptualize South Asia, that is the last variable I will define that how do we start conceptualizing South Asia? That is one of the most important academic work which should be do, because South Asia as a region is important for us to understand. Now, if you look in the history, how was this South Asian society envisaged during colonial period? How was it envisaged? Two very important epithets were used to understand and analyze the society. These societies, South Asian societies, were considered as traditional societies, and they were juxtaposed against the colonial masters who had come from Western countries. They were considered as modern society. So there was a dichotomy. In colonial period, there was a dichotomy to conceptualize the world. And Indian society or Indian subcontinent, which is now South Asia, basically was tried to define as a traditional society. Therefore, friends, the first thing we will do is that to differentiate between traditional society and a modern society. I want to take only 4 characteristics to define what is traditional society, and juxtaposed to that 4 characteristics for modern society. These characteristics are not hard and fast. There may be many more which can be added, but I will just, for our sakes of clarification, I will take these 4 characteristics. A traditional society is that society which has these following 4 characteristics. 1, it is holistic in nature. That's where individuals are not independent entity. They are part of a larger whole. Either they're part of their larger group, that is religion. In India, it is caste, varna, or sometimes they are part of the village, because they cannot be considered outside this holism. So these societies are holistic. These societies are hierarchical in nature. That means the groups are situated one above the other in terms of status, in terms of power, in terms of prestige, and therefore it is hierarchical. And the third element of the traditional society, it's continuity. We do not know when it is started, and we do not know when it's going to end. Therefore, there is continuity. And fourth, there is transcendence. The world, this world where we are, is not the last destination. There is somewhere else. These people who are born in this, they have to go somewhere else also. So there is a transcendence from this particular incarnation. Now, these four characteristics, holism, hierarchy, continuity, and transcendence, in juxtaposing to that, there are four characteristics to modern society. Holism, in place of holism, in modern society, there is individualism. Individual is end in itself. It has no membership of another religion or caste or region. They are free agents. Similarly, in place of hierarchy, there is equality, and it is actually emerging gradually in different parts of the world. Then continuity, there's a historicity. The society has started, begin somewhere, and it will end one day. And the fourth characteristics of modern society is this worldly rationalism and secularism. So in this way, the society, traditional society, was characterized, an Indian subcontinent with its variety of South Asia, this was basically born. Now we come to conceptualizing South Asia. How today, when the world has become a global village type of thing, that we will come later, but how we and when was this conceptualization of South Asia born? I think that's very important to conceptualize the world. Unless and until we do that, then we are not able to actually look the opportunities, and they will not be able to look the challenges, from where the challenges are coming. Therefore, I'm spending this time to make you understand the conceptualization South Asia. So South Asia emerges from a theoretical dimension of regionalism. And regionalism is an approach to study international relations. So actually, I am trying to be multidisciplinary, though I'm a sociologist, but I'm using these concepts from, international relations. So regionalism is, geographically speaking, a tendency to divide divide Asia somewhat latitudinally, and then treat all the countries, the so-called South, in the arc, the Southeast and South Asia as the South Asia region. So it's only a geographical arc which is latitudinally carved out. And this definition is legitimized by regional institutions, like, for instance, South Asia Institute of Heidelberg, University of Germany, tries to subscribe this type of definition. Now, if you look into region, what is region? In this regionalism approach, what is a region and how we identify a region? A geographical territory, usually known as region, has four characteristics. It is a shared history. It has a shared history. It has shared culture. It has somewhat shared economic interest. And last but not the least, it has foreign interest. So on these basis, a region is carved out. Now, having said this, the world was divided into 15 regions. If we take the book, Open the Social Sciences, and this is Gulbenkian Commission report by Emanuel Wallerstein and others, who have tried to argue that how after the World War II, the world was whole divided into different regions. And 15 regions of the world were carved out. I will just name for you: North America first, Latin America 2, Western Europe 3, Eastern Europe 4, Russia 5th, and then 5 Africas: North Africa 6th, 7th West Africa, South Africa, Central Africa, and East Africa. 11th was East Asia, 12th was West Asia, that is Pacific, 13th was Middle East, and then Southeast Asia, and 15 South Asia. So it is in this manner South Asia was carved out. Now, having said this, World Bank recognizes that South Asia has 8 countries. These are Afghanistan, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan, and Maldives. Now, if we have to care for the world, then we have to understand, friends, small little countries like Maldives, who we never think of, Bhutan, who never think of. Why should we study Nepal? And therefore, regional studies with these all small little countries, in South Asia, we know sometimes only India and forget about that we have other 7 countries also. And therefore, regional approach becomes important. Now, therefore, after World Bank, we had SAARC, South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. That cooperation that was founded in 1985 also recognized these 8 countries. And therefore, South Asia region is important as far as the world history is concerned. Now, if we are able to make more sense of South Asia, then friends, we should also try to understand from evolutionary, historical, and comparative approach to understand these. Actually, what is the contribution of this area to the world? I think it's very important. But to understand few characteristics of South Asia, this may be sociological, this may be political, all these types of characteristics, I think it's important. If we take a historical approach, then we see that this region was influenced by colonialism. All the 8 countries were affected by the colonialism. So colonialism becomes a very, very important marker for understanding South Asia as a region. Now, if we go a little bit deeper, then we will find that how colonialism impacted different countries very, very decisively. Now, for this, if we take India, India fought a long drawn independence battle to get freedom out of colonialism. Sri Lanka did not fight a war of independence, but they got freedom. Then Nepal got boundaries just because it entered into a treaty with East India Company. And East India Company, of course, was the harbinger of the colonialism in South Asia. So now the 4th country or the 5th country, you can see how it was decisively when the British colonial people were leaving South Asia, how they bifurcated India. And in turn, Pakistan was born, 14th of August 1947. So we have in South Asia another country, and out of that 71 we have another country. So we see that how South Asia has evolved gradually in the evolutionary perspective because of colonialism. The second way, actually, second very important aspect of colonialism, which affects even today, is very important, is the way colonialists developed Indian South Asia polity. They did not develop polity. They developed bureaucracy, long bureaucracy. And I'm taking from Myron Weir and also Atul Kohli, all have said that colonialists in South Asia did not develop polity. They developed big army and big bureaucracy. And as soon as a leader, a political leader emerged, they put them behind the bars so that politics, democratic politics, should not emerge. And therefore, friends, we see the reminiscence of that military state is still looms large in the South Asian subcontinent. Now, the second characteristic to understand South Asia will be development of democracy. A very important element to understand South Asia, that how a country, a region which was dominated by the colonialist is marching towards democracy. And each country has become democratic and more democratic in nature. But I think we could see at least two axes or to understand and make sense a deeper understanding of South Asia. One, if you see the axis of democracy, we see that democracy in Sri Lanka and India was to be consolidated because, constitution was at place in Sri Lanka, and Indian constitution was supposed to be promulgated, and it had started already on 29th of December 1946. It started, and by the time British leave, the constitution was almost there. So here, the democracy was supposed to be consolidated with this. But the second axis, which developed over the years, it was basically that out of 70 years of Pakistan and Bangladesh, if you look, in Pakistan, 28 years, there was military rule here and there. And in 48 years of rule in Bangladesh, 17 years was actually a military. So we see that how oscillation. But now, democracy has come to stay. There are democratic elections. There are elections under the aegis of Election Commission. So that means there is a seed of ripening of democracy in South Asia. The second axis which we have to understand is in South Asia, there were monarchies. At least 3 monarchies were there. They were constitutional, and sometimes Nepal, Bhutan, and Maldives. They were monarchies, and they are moving towards democracy. But there's a difference between Nepal and Bhutan. In Nepal, democracy emerged from the youth movement, people's movement from below. And we all know that how Pushkamal Dhal Prachand, who led the movement, and of course the Communist Party, they led the movement from below, and then monarchy had to leave and democracy had to usher. But in Bhutan, there was a different case altogether. In Bhutan, democracy was imposed by the king, and king has contributed in the development of democracy. So we have a different access to understand of democracy in South Asia to make sense. Very important aspect of contribution. What is the contribution of South Asia? We are talking about that, the success stories of South Asia, I think, is very important as a region. Why? Because there have been always, people think that, oh, South Asian countries are suffering from poverty, illiteracy, atrocity, suppression, and violence, and so on and so forth. But they have contributed also. I think this is very important to understand. The first and the foremost, out of 8 countries, if we look into, South Asia was the first in the world to give a woman leader as the head of the nation. And if we say it goes long before Madam Thatcher, it was Bandaranaike, Srimavo Bandaranaike, who became the president of the Sri Lanka. And out of 8, 4 countries have given the head of the women, women head of the nation. Srimavo Bandaranaike, and then we have Indira Gandhi in India, Benazir Bhutto in Pakistan, Sheikh Hasina Wajed, and Begum Khalida Zia in Bangladesh. All have ruled. So there is a contribution of the South Asian nation. Now, this region, if you look into another contribution, and which comes from Bangladesh, is microcredit policy, how it has contributed. Muhammad Yunus, Nobel Prize winner, founding of Grameen bank, the pioneering concepts of microcredit finance. And Bangladesh presents a very different example where NGO have become MNC. BARC, working in 11 countries today is the MNC started with NGOs. Now, therefore, a very, very important contribution is coming from South Asia. Two more important. One is that Bhutan's contribution. It has contributed to gross national happiness index. While people are talking only about human development index, here is a small country in South Asia which is thinking of the happiness, and we can actually debate that what are the characteristics of happiness. Last but not the least, the king of Bhutan presented an example to the world that a king can retire, and he has set in the constitution the limit of age of a king to retire. We have examples from very developed democracies like UK, where Queen is going on. But here is a king in a small nation who is saying that 65 years and I will retire. Now, these are very examples where we can understand that how South Asia as a region collectively is evolving gradually and moving towards democracy, is strengthening democracy, and then also contributing to the world polity. It is us, we have to take on us that we go and popularize these aspects. Otherwise, we will be only talking about poverty and illiteracy and atrocity on the Dalits. Now, having said this, let me come to explain another process, how I will understand the process of globalization in today's world. And of course, we will also take the contribution of the globalization. Now, globalization, I've explained you how the world was conceptualized, how the world in the colonial time conceptualized South Asia, traditional and modern societies. That was dichotomy. But now in the global world, it has become a global village. That's what people are trying to understand South Asia. But there is also a very important underpinning of the globalization process, that how the South Asians have to view the process of globalization. Why? Because there is the Western academia is trying to argue that the world has become one, and therefore there is a global village and one world and one culture. Homogenization is taking place. But, sociologists from South Asia, like Professor T.K. Uman, have tried to contest this view. And therefore, friends, we have to understand the process of globalization a little bit more carefully. What is globalization? There can be three types of, definition that you have to understand. There is a unidimensional definition of globalization. The unidimensional definition of globalization argues that globalization is a process of economic exchange, and various countries of the world have lifted restrictions in the financial and goods exchange. So there is new regime altogether which is facilitating economic exchange. But this is unidimensional definition. There is a double dimensional definition of globalization. And what is that? The double dimensional definition of globalization argues that economic exchange are not taking place on their own. They are taking place with the help of technology. And what are the technology? It is, of course, MNCs, the multinational corporations, no doubt technology is there, but information technology, the IT, is very important part through which the exchange is taking place. Not only exchange in the economy through the technology, but also transportation. Migration is taking place on a big way. And we can give you example. According to World Migration Report 2020, World Migration Report 2020, there were, 2,729 lakh people who have migrated internationally. And from India, only India, 175 lakh people migrated. So how this migration is facilitated by cheap transportation in the era of globalization. So globalization does not exist only as an idea of economic exchange, but it is facilitated by technology. But friends, as a sociologist and as a social scientist, we should not be bogged down with only two-dimensional definition. We have to take multiple dimensional definition of globalization. And this is that globalization not only impacts economy, but it impacts every aspect of the society, the culture, the society, the structure of the society. And therefore, globalization is a multi-dimensional process which affects different institutions or different structures of the society, economic, political, social, educational, religious structures and processes of the society as well. And therefore, it's important that we South Asians should understand the process of globalization. Now, it is in this context, when we start observing South Asia, or that for that matter, we can observe world, but I'm talking about South Asia here, and I have concrete empirical examples from India, which I'm trying to, generalize in South Asia, because I treat South Asia subcontinent as a one society with its dimension of tradition, of a holism, hierarchy, transcendence, as well as continuity. Now, these are very important aspects. Now, in this context, when we look, during this process of globalization, that is fast communication and communication system and technology transference, after Washington Consensus, especially 1990s, that 4-into-1 processes have started emerging. Now, what are these 4 processes that we have to look? These processes are homogenization, pluralization, traditionalization, and hybridization. These are 4-into-1 processes which are taking place in the South Asian region. Now, homogenization exists because of transportation, because of information revolution. What is available in one part is also available in the other part. So with one click of the button, you can have, knowledge, not only in India, but also in Bangladesh, in Dhaka, in Sylhet, or in Pakistan, or then definitely in Punjab, this side or that side, or actually Pennsylvania, wherever you are, you can have with one click. So in that context, it looks that, there is a homogenization of the world, but what is underpinning into it? There is a process of pluralization. Now, the colonial, understanding of the world has always been in dichotomies. They have always, the Western epistemic syndrome, there is called as Western epistemic syndrome. Now, Western epistemic syndrome in the knowledge system, has 2 components. One, the Western epistemic syndrome has a characteristic of understanding the world into dualities, that is dichotomies, rich and poor, old and young, and modern and tradition, rural and urban. This is the way Western epistemologies have tried to understand the reality, always a dichotomy. The second aspect of Western epistemology is it suffers from displacement syndrome. It argues that one process comes, the other will be displaced. For example, if modernity is coming, traditional will be displaced. But social scientists in South Asia, they have contested this item. And they say that this Western epistemic syndrome of understanding reality in dichotomies and understanding realities in displacement syndrome is not correct. Why? Because there are different shades of reality. There may not be necessarily dichotomy, but there may be continuum, that one is going and another is coming, and there may be a twilight zone also. So it's not the social institutions are totally displaced all of a sudden. They exist and they change their shape. And that is why in India, when we look into modernization of tradition, traditions have not been wiped out. Rather that actually we have tried to look into that how globalization as a process has tried to come and stay in the Asian society. So displacement syndrome is not there. It is basically a creation, a new permutation and combination is created. For instance, traditional societies have traditional panchayat systems of justice. But today we have democracy. But panchayats have not been wiped out. Caste panchayats, religious panchayats, they exist. Similarly, when we come to pluralization in the global era, then we will see that how old practices in the process of globalization, how the old practices in the society have not been displaced. They exist side by side. I will give you an example to prove the point. In pluralization, we can take example of modern apparels, jeans. We wear jeans because of the globalization process. From denim to Gucci, everything has come to world, and it is available in the different parts of the world. But in South Asia, during the marriages, if I take example from India, Pakistan, Nepal, or Pakistan and Bangladesh, then we will see that how during the marriage, a young person would like to wear a sherwani during the marriage. He will wear his jeans and t-shirt during the general period. But during the marriage period, he wants that traditional dress. Similarly, the women in red sari or red lehenga, or actually the white apparel is very, very auspicious. So it is very important that we have to note that in the process of globalization, pluralization exists and things are not displaced. They exist side by side. The third process in the process of globalization in South Asia is process of traditionalization. The traditional identities, the primordial identities, they assert. And we can see that how when the globalization comes, we see that in the process of globalization, how the primordial identities, primordial languages, they are attacked by the other aspect of the global culture. But what happens that they do not actually give up. So what happens that a assertion of the traditional identities start. It may be led by youths, it may be led by the bigots, and it may also be led by the communal groups. It can be anyone. And I can give you example from India very much that during the 14th of February, that is Valentine's Day, we look into that how the youth from the right wing, they start coming and saying that no heart-shaped Archie cards should not be there because it is spoiling the culture of the traditional society, and no couple should roam free on 14th of February. It is a Valentine Day, but you cannot do so. So people start asserting, and we have seen that how religion has gone to the television. The way television today, especially cable TV, airs the traditional identities of the religion, it's foregone conclusion that how these things look into traditional in multilingual society, for example, where there are different languages, there is local translation of Hollywood movies. There is local translation of geographical, geographic channel. All these history channel, all these channels are being now, translated into the regional language. So tradition is asserting. So there's a process of traditionalization also. Last but not the least, there's a process of hybridization during the process of globalization. And it is here that what is the process of hybridization? Some people have called this globalization, but I'm using the term given by T.K. Uman as hybridization. What is hybridization? Hybridization is a process in which the cultural item which is coming from global world, certain part of the global cultural item is amputated and some local part is added, and a new variety of product is formed. I usually give this 2 or 3 examples. One is example of McDonald's vegetable burger. In every part of the world, US or Europe, we should get a McDonald's burger with beef and ham. But in India, because of vegetarianism, we have taken out a beef and ham, and we have put a potato cutlet, and we have produced a McDonald's burger, which is vegetable McDonald's burger. And it has become a symbol, but it is a hybrid variety. It is not the McDonald's burger which is available in Europe or in America. Now, another example is Punjabi pop or Hindi pop. The pop music is pop, but the words are Hindi, words are Punjabi, words are Bangla, and therefore a pop music is produced on MTV. Now, this is nothing but process of hybridization. So therefore, friends, there are 4 interrelated processes which are going in the process of globalization, and therefore this equation, one world, one culture, will be a misnomer. It is not going to crystallize, and one world, one culture is not the right idea to understand process of globalization. Now, having defined, the 2 variables of my lecture, I come to the 3rd variable, and this is the youth. How do I conceptualize youth? I'll take some water in between. Okay. I was taking some water, so I stopped.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I can begin again, Bujan?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You just again. So
Okay.
in this gap, I would like to say all the audience to ask any questions or query in the chat box, either in Zoom chat box or in YouTube chat box. So you can ask Professor Vivek Kumar. So, sir, please carry on.
Okay. Now, how do I conceptualize youth, and whether there can be a conceptualization of youth also, because societies have different statuses. There are adults, there are actually old people, but youth as a category, usually youth is a social category which has been defined of the people age between 15 to 35. 15 to 35 years of age is considered to be. But when we look in South Asia, there are different countries who have tried to define the youth with different age group. For example, Bangladesh defines youth as a category between 15 to 24. Pakistan defines youth between 15 to 29. Nepal, 16 to 40. Maldives, it is 18 to 34. Now, therefore, we have to see that there is no unified definition as far as the age group is concerned. And, we can see that how different countries are basically now infested with different parts of the different percentage of population of the youth population. But before coming to that, let me elaborate on youth. How do we envisage, and we should envisage? Sociologically, the concept of youth is a very new, not very old concept. As far as if you compare the origin of civilized society, is not very old. Professor Tika Uman argues that even in Western society itself, youth as a category emerged very late. For the first time, French philosopher Rousseau talked about young people in 1762. So that means in 1762, for the first time, youth as a category, a status symbol started emerging. Now, why was this a bifurcation or emergence of a new category started? It was so that individual learned everything within the home. Earlier, there were no schools, there were no other institutions where people could go, neither industries, even production used to take in family. And therefore, individuals learned everything in home, and his father was a teacher or his mother was the teacher, and therefore they could learn. But there was no exclusive institution of training where there was dissociation of different statuses. So there was a unified status of the individual. There were children or there were adults. But as the process of industrialization started and there was expansion, there was intense specialization of roles and statuses, and the division of labor started, and hence a specific role to the category of 15 to 35 started, and they started learning different types of specialization. Now, therefore, friends, it is important for us to understand youth not from age, rather than we should understand youth from content which the people have during that age period. Now, what is the content of this category, which is called as youth? What is so unique content of this category that we have to underline to understand? The content of this important age is immense psychic and physical energy. Immense psychic and physical energy. They have immense enthusiasm, and therefore these psychic and physical energy and enthusiasm, they want an outlet. It is important that we should look into outlet, how the outlet is there. And therefore, there is an important role of the elders to be played, that how this immense psychic and physical energy is constructively driven, or they is creatively and constructively driven, so that it contributes to the development of the nation? How can you actually cajole and evolve and give direction so that this psychic energy is there? And therefore, by content wise, if we look the energy, if you look the psychic energy, if we look the physical energy, the revolutionary fervor is much more during this period. But we cannot say that, this zeal, this psychic energy and physical energy may not be found in the people who are aged 50, 60 or 40. And therefore, age should not be considered as a bar for defining youth. Youth can be, of course, in old people with 60 years if they had this energy. But revolutionary fervor is there. Now, having defined the youth as the content, as bundle of energy, as the bundle of psychic and physical energy and the enthusiasm, let us look into that whether South Asian youth is a monolithic whole or there are internal differentiations. Now, friends, if we look into that South Asian youth is not a monolithic whole if we observe empirically. Why? Because the society is divided into different groups, and one of the very important bifurcation of dichotomy, as I'm taking from Western, the syndrome, if you look into that South Asian youth and taking empirical examples from different countries, I have evolved this typology, and this typology is also from different other social scientists. There are 5 categories of youth in South Asia. One is rural youth, which is very important to note. Why? Because rural youth, if you look into the population, rural population in South Asia, for example, South Asia, total population of South Asia, 66% of South Asia population is rural youth. And within South Asia, if we look, we can say that 63% of the Bangladesh is rural, 63% of Pakistan is also rural, and 68% of India is rural. But Nepal, 80% of Nepal is rural, and Maldives 65, Bhutan 65. So at least 60 to 65% of the population is still in rural areas. Now, what is so specific characteristic of rural youth? Rural youth is burdened by tradition. It is burdened by tradition. It is burdened by lack of information. It is burdened by the bigotry and also the unknowability of certain facts of the society. And therefore, he is always tied with the tradition and family and pressure of the working, whatever the little bit work is there in the rural area, and that's what agriculture. And in India, if I take, or even in Pakistan, Bangladesh, burden on agricultural land is so much that people are outnumbered as far as their land holding is concerned. So there are people, but they do not have work. So this is unemployment, without information, and also poverty, illiteracy, and therefore he is, of course, laden with the whirlwind of ignorance, and therefore he remains there. The second youth in South Asia is urban youth, and urban youth is also a very important category, because urban youth is usually emerging out of the first generation migrants to the urban areas. When the parents migrate to the urban areas with little jobs, they also what? Now, in that way, if we look that these people are still very much obedient to their parents, they are listening to the whims and fancy of their parents. They depend on their parent wishes. So if the parents want, say that you become doctor, they will be doctor. If they become engineer, they will become engineer. And they do not go to the wishes. Now, it is these group, when they go to colleges and schools, they are exploited by the local leaders, the political leaders. And the local political leaders exploit because they are obedient. And in that context, urban youth is burdened or pressurized by the wishes of the parents and also the local area leaders because he is obedient. This is the third category which we look. The third category is a westernized youth. Westernized youth is born with the face towards west only. And he is waiting. He is waiting to take first flight to land in Western country. His songs are Western, his films are Westerns, and therefore, he is ready to move. And therefore, he is cut off from his traditional roots and is not able to contribute in a positive manner to the society because he is facing a marginalized youth in different categories, the poor, marginalized, suppose if I take Bangladesh example, the Chittagong Hills, the Chakmas, actually they are Adivasis, we call it them as tribals. There is a youth where 7.5% of Indian population is, tribals. And of course, in Nepal, there are Madheshis who are, of course, different types of youth. So marginalized youth is also there, which have a injured psyche because of their exclusion from the society on the basis of region, on the basis of caste, and sometimes on the basis of religion. In different areas, there are religious minorities, and therefore they are marginalized and they have a psychology which is injured psychology, and they are not able to participate. We have seen that how youth in South Asia, in Sri Lanka, because of the marginalization and the way LTT maneuvered the youth, they started a very different type of movement which threatened the integrity of the nation itself. Now, having said this, last but not the least, we have a crisis-prone globalized youth. Now, there's a difference between westernized youth and a crisis-prone globalized youth. What is that? The crisis-prone globalized youth is different from westernized youth because his reference group is not only Western society. His reference group is all global world. And we see today, China has become the hub of the students from the South Asia. There are more. Earlier, there were more people going towards Australia, or there were more people going to US, UK, but there is basically a very, very important population which is going to China for higher education. Now, that is why we say that a globalized youth had a reference group from all over the world. Now, in this context, what is the crisis which he faced? The crisis is speed. The crisis is speed of anything with which, institutions change, icons change, the specialization of occupations change. And therefore, he is facing lot of crisis. For example, because of now cricket is, of course, very popular in the subcontinent, whether it is Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, even Nepal is catching up now. Afghanistan team has already come. So cricket icons are usually revered. But what happens that within no time, these cricket icons wither away because of IPL season and other, there are different icons of youth are produced in the cricket scenario. Not only that, we see advertisements in films, advertisements in also television, that there are icons, but they wither away within no time. And therefore, this youth is very much, in lurch, where to search. For example, another example taken from occupation. People learned languages, different types of languages they learn for computers. So they have Java, they have C++, they have Photon, everything they have learned. But tomorrow there is another specialization. They need courses. There are more online courses just because to keep the pace of social change, so that people should not say that you do not have required degree and you will not get a job. So people have to invest so much in the upkeeping of their education that they do not know. Earlier in India, we used to get a very good job only by doing only a IIT, Indian Institute of Technology, that of a bachelor's of engineering. But what has happened? That today people want a engineering degree with a management degree. So there are dual degrees which are becoming very much, but they are so much expensive. Where is that expensive? Where is that actually money which is coming? So in the process of globalization, there things are available. Things are available, no problem. But are they accessible? That is the question, I think. If they are not accessible, then globalization is not supporting. Rather, it is basically drawing these people, they're drawing this workforce out of job, because it is creating, it is creating demand after demand, a new specialization after specialization. Now, the new work culture of NGOs, as you all know, I think, and who else better than the people from Bangladesh know that how NGOization has come with the development of globalization. Why? Because civil societies have come to govern the finances of different donor institutions, whether it is foreign aid institutions, or bilateral or small donations. It is they who say that the internal bureaucracy is not working. There is a lot of red tapeism, and therefore NGOs which have actually new type of functionary coming in from abroad, they are the people who are managing the finances, and that crisis creates crisis. The youth, where should they will get a job? Because there are the people who are trained abroad, they are coming, and they are not the real NGO people. They are only, they are making money out of their job. So in that context, the loss of the indigenous youth with managing the affairs, there are no jobs available in the government, and government is not bringing out any opportunity. Therefore, this globalized youth is facing and could only sell his smile in the malls as service provider. He has become a service provider. One of the important takeaway from the crisis is this. Now, having said this, I think I was Dulal Biswas from Dulal Biswas. Yeah, he has written this article, and I think he runs a organization. He is president of National Federation of Youth Organizations in Bangladesh. Now, if you read the story from a particular region, then you will find that there is no capital to start an organization. The world has become competitive, and in this competitiveness, if I take example from India again, there are 6.3 million micro, small, and medium enterprises, SMEs, MSMEs, micro, small and medium enterprises. And these are backbone of the economy, and they give 80 million people job. But when there is a crisis of capital, these people do not get capital. Next, the experimentation. Where is the room for experimentation? You are up against a very, very formidable, opposition or opponent, that is China, which is preparing, goods and services at very cheap rate. So this is again a crisis for globalized use. The women aspect is also very much, gender aspect is very important. If you take gender, the process of globalization has not helped. The tradition is still carrying on. The age at which the South Asian women get married is very, very mind-boggling. Somewhere 15.6 years or 15.8 years, they get married. Now, it is in this context that burden or fertility and fraternity starts emerging. Now, how she has to tackle. Now, these processes of globalization, therefore, friends, have given different crises to different sections of the society. The rural youth, the urban youth, the westernized youth, the marginalized youth, as well as the youth of the more globalized world, which wants to compete. But now, the process of globalization has seen, therefore, a very formidable opposition, and different sections of the society have actually opposed this process of globalization. And today pandemic, at least COVID-19, is talking about that how the process of globalization in the world has affected not only youth in universities and colleges, but it has affected the labor migrant youth, which of course is in big numbers. And therefore, friends, I think we as a whole has to look into the world system which has been produced by the globalization, because I think that process of globalization itself has put number of countries in crisis. If you read, the crisis of women, especially how actually the whole fabricated or the cloth industry, the ready-made garment industry, how that women are being exploited, young women are being exploited in that industry. And, they cannot leave the job. Naila Kabir has written a very good article that women work in the garment industries more than the maid. This is an example, of course, from Bangladesh as well, and they cannot leave. And the garment industry people, they keep them more there because they rely more. Women are more reliable. That is also there. They are reliable because they cannot leave. They have to run their family. It is not that actually they are docile. No, they are more committed to their families, and therefore they cannot leave job and get exploited. Now, in that sense, I think the big owners, industrial owners, they have become only suppliers. Now, this is the process of the globalization, which has brought information revolution on the one hand, which has given some opportunities to the people to go out and study and take degrees. But when they come back to their home, how they will contribute, that is the challenge, I think, that we have to look into. Bujay, I should stop here.
So very good discussion is going on. We are enjoying it, and the audience are also enjoying. They are commenting that you are doing very well, and they have already asked many questions and queries to you. Okay. And if you think it is okay, then we will start to give you the questions.
Yeah, I think it is 20 minutes. So if we can take these 20 minutes question answer, I and there may be more. Otherwise, I will say something more then. But
Okay,
first,
sir,
I think
if you think it is okay, then we will start to ask. We will go to a question answering session.
yeah, I think let's have question answer. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. And if you think there is something to say, you can proceed on, sir. No problem.
No, I think actually, I think let should not be there be a monologue. Let there be a dialogue. So let me see, and then if there is something, then we can definitely wind up.
Exactly, sir. Exactly. Thank you so much. And you are delivering a very rigorous session. That is why it is like a sea, and it's like an ocean. It is endless actually. So let's go to the question answering session, sir.
Yeah.
So the first question from Shubhradev Talukdar: how the colonial power how the colonial power is affecting the society?
Okay. Fantastic. Now, colonialism, you know that we can start from 14th, 15th century after the scientific revolution ushered. And after the scientific revolution, industrial revolution ushered, and the production system changed from family to factory, and then the whole world system started changing. The colonialists conceptualized the world into three others: the black other, the Orient other, and the white other. This was a three-way that they started, colonialists, when they began. And we all know that when the colonialists left, there was, of course, the Second World War, and we can also look into that the two world which were created, or you can say the two superpowers which were created, led by America, another led by Russia, they were again actually trying to argue. So colonialists contributed in the world the three types of modernities. That is one of the very important contributions they made. What are the three types of modernities? First is the first world modernity. Second is the second world modernity. And another is third world modernity. Especially after the Second World War, this was the way the world was, the world was conceptualized. If the colonialist tried to conceptualize the world between modern and tradition, the Cold War tried to conceptualize the world into first world, second world, and third world. The first world emerged out of first world modernity, that was industrial revolution. The first world emerged out of industrial revolution. The second world emerged out of ideological revolution. And third world emerged out of revolution against colonialism. Now these colonial masters, they created a long discourse, and they created a framework to understand the society. And that's where the theories of development, the theories of modernization, they were created. If you look, the world system, Immanuel Wallerstein, all these people tried to create a discourse through which the world has to be understood. Now, the first world, the second world, the third world, if you start looking at the institutions which they created, the first world created trichotomy of institution, and it bifurcated economy, polity, and society. But the second world, which emerged out of ideological revolution, only created two institutions. One was government, another was state. Government and economy and civil society was relegated to periphery. So government and economy merged together. But in the South Asia, there was mixed economy model. Especially you take India, where four institutions: the government, the public sector, the private sector, and the civil society. So if you say the developmental model created by colonial master was that South Asia can only develop if it toes the line of the Western model. That means it has to have to democracy as a polity, it has to have a private sector, it has to actually bring in technology from the Western country. It is in this way colonialists tried to maneuver and tried to create a framework of development of economy, and that's where the language itself, the education system, and the military system, all these were their contribution, and that's where we are still suffering. They created big armies, they created big states, but they did not develop a democratic polity. And that's why we still feel that how the dictators haunt us. They come in between and they try to create havoc in the South Asian society. That's where is the hangover of the colonialism.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. There are many questions. There are a lot of questions. So I would like to request you to answer very briefly, sir.
Sorry.
So the next question from Borun Chandra Rai, the Honorable Chairman of the Department of Economics, Rabindra University, Bangladesh. He has asked a question. Is the global political economy based on a relationship independence, dependence, or interdependence?
Well, it looks that it is on interdependence, but of course the ball is tilted towards the Western society as far as technology, as far as economy, as far as institutions, supra institutions, World Bank, IMF, whatever it is, it looks tilted towards the Western society. So it looks that it is interdependent, but I do not say it is more dependent.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. The next question from Dibya Rana, and her question is how to solve the caste and religion problem in South Asia.
I think for that we need a social democracy. Social democracy means that there should be, self-representation of each group, whether it is caste, whether it is religion, and whether it is gender, or whether it is, minorities. Everyone should be first given a self-representation, and self-representation in judiciary, in bureaucracy, in industry, in university, and in civil society. There should be representation to create more democratic institutions in the society.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. The next question from Sanjit Kundu, and his question is, will the Chinese economy will surpass the United States?
Yes, of course.
How long it will take?
I cannot give you the time, but it will definitely surpass, because actually what we see is today that the way expansionist policy of China is that it is trying to cajole South Asian nations, and South Asian nations will definitely help for his product. Actually, the products are so cheap that it's very difficult to compete with it, and the massification of production is another way that it is trying to dump these products in different parts of the world.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. The next question is from another faculty, Professor Nazrul Islam of the Department of Economics, Rabindra University, Bangladesh. He will ask his question directly from Zoom.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Hello, Nazrul.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the wonderful session. The whole session was so much nicely presented and wonderful that actually in a pin drop silenced environment, I was listening through each and every word. Sir, my question is, if you look in the last 2 or 3, 5 years, I see that in case of violence, there are more or like similarities in the countries, in the South Asia, in case of politics, political situations or everything. In case of violence, I see some kinds of similarities in the types of the violences. So is that for that the country, due to globalization, the behaviors, the cultures are being affected in a devastating situation? Number one. Number two is that if I give you example that in our Bangladesh, it is supposed that Indian TV channel cable TV channel is affecting our society in a devastating way, that our youths are doing violences or learning something else that is not appropriate to the society. So is that like the large countries like India or China is affecting the small countries in a rigorous way that is not so that is harmful to the culture of the small countries compared to the large countries. And another one is, sir, are the youths are being largely affected by the cultures? If I give example like TikTok from China, so is the cultures of the large countries is affecting the youth so in a devastating way? And if it is true, then how can we reduce it, or how can we solve the issues?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I hope that it will come to Bangladesh and to our university, and we'll hold such sessions again. Thank you,
Yes.
we'll get you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Definitely. Thank you, Nazrul. Thank you so much. Thank you for a very challenging question. I don't know whether I'll be able to answer all, but yes, one thing is for sure. What I see when I look into violence actually. So one thing is for sure that violence is the important stay of middle class. This middle class is somewhere in the era of globalization because of increase in class, poverty. There are more and more people who are sinking into poverty, especially I'm talking about middle class. And he is facing a lot of challenge because he is not getting the due which he deserves. He has little bit of education. He has also technical education, but he's not getting a job. So I think there is a lot of anxiety within the middle class of every society. I'm talking about every South Asian country. And once if there is a crisis for the middle class and the polity is not listening to the same way, because polity is catering to a small section. In India, it is catering to a small section of Ambanis and Adanis type of thing. But actually, you see how the Awami League and BNP both supported globalization. Only left party is opposed. So why actually? So if this is the situation, then what happens? There is a challenge to the middle class, and middle class when loses hope, then retort to violence. That is the only thing. That is one understanding which I say. Last but not the least, culture is very specific. Culture is very specific. I think we are not able to go to roots of our culture. And if we can revive our culture, of course, Rabin Sangeet and others, they are so secular in nature, where actually people. So if we can look into the secular aspect of our cultures, which was considered to be a mosaic of different cultures, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Sikh, Isai, all these people, they were actually clubbed together. So I think there is a very, very important collage of these cultures, just like Mishti Doi, that you have to look into, and then look for, giving these recipes to our youth.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much, sir. The next question is from Shah Shafi, and his question is the youth leadership is able to solve the Kashmir conflicts?
I don't think so, because in India, youth is still a misnomer. In India, youth is not given that much of representation, and is still septuagenarian and octogenarian politicians, they lead the politics. So we have septuagenarian, 70-year-old, 60-year-old. These are the politicians who set the agenda. You see, from our partition, it was Gandhi who set the agenda. Then actually it was now in 70, at the 70 age, Anna Hazare set the agenda. And now Modi is setting the agenda. Where is the youth? So youth cannot solve the problem because there is no representation of the youth.
Okay, sir. The next question is from Mysore's School of Economics, Sopian, Kashmir. And the question is, how COVID-19 will affect international relationship, especially in the South Asian countries, as no one is going to trust one another.
No, but I don't think that, look, this is the problem of the South Asian origin. This problem is, of course, the origin of the process of globalization. We all know that it emerged in Wuhan, and then it did not come to India or in Bangladesh. It went to US, and it went to Western societies or European societies first. It created havoc, and then actually it came to India. But in South Asia, I think we have given a lot of actually credit to our lockdown. And in Bangladesh itself, actually, Sheikh Hasina Wajed the Prime Minister gave 1 week for migrant workers to go there to the houses. And in India, we get only 4 hours. So you can imagine actually that people are managing it differently. And therefore, I do not think that South Asia, there will be any impact as far as COVID is concerned. China is different. If China is impacting and if China is scheduling different countries, then there will be a problem rather than COVID-19.
Okay, sir. The next question is from Nandaraj Roy, and his question is, what will be the duty to reduce the abuse of our culture?
I think if we can give a representation of cultural items of every community and society and celebrate it rather than obliterate it. The problem is not of obliteration, but celebration. Celebrate each other's ideas at the national level. I think then there we have a very composite type of culture.
Okay, very good, sir. The next question is from Ajay Yadav. His question is, can SAARC be as like as EU and ASEAN?
Actually, unless and until certain countries stop playing a big brother role and treat each and every country as equal partner, I think it can play a good role rather than actually dictating the terms. That is what that is the important aspect of foreign policy, that you treat every country as equal.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much, sir. The next question is from Surendra Yadav, and his question is South Asia is the main problem of the lack of information. How to deal this?
I don't think so. It is lack of problem. It is actually problem of greed, that people try to hide the problem. They are not ready to share. So there is enough for everybody's need, but for not enough for everybody's greed. So you need to share. Unless until you share, it will be a problem. So greed is the problem and not the actually lack of information.
Okay, sir. The next question is from Shushma Sagar. Her question is, what are the differences between casteism and untouchability?
Casteism is a process where the powerful caste or groups, they try to exclude people, exclude from the institutions of governance, education, and production. That is industry, judiciary, bureaucracy. You try to exclude on the basis of certain powerful group in the caste. They try to exclude. That is casteism. And untouchability is only that when you do not take food or water from someone, you do not allow yourself to be in your private interactional pattern. That is untouchability, which is a minuscule problem. But casteism is a bigger problem which tries to exclude people, and where the few powerful castes, they monopolize the institution of governance, production, as well as in education.
Okay, very good, sir. The next question is from Tamil Mani, and the question is, South Asia have vast natural resources and young youth power, but they are not utilizing it properly. How to utilize it?
Yes, I think actually, there are not, many capsules, but one thing is for sure, that if you really want to harness the capacity and capability of the youth, you have to give them an agenda. The nation has to give them agenda. Nation have given them. How the young Japanese, how young Chinese, 30, 40, they are leading the world. But actually here, 50, 60, 80, they are sitting and they're not giving us agenda to govern. I think unless and until youth gets a unified agenda and becomes the leader, I do not think that we can use our resources of youthfulness, which is of course a very young population in South Asia. So we have to get the opportunity, we have to get the platform to utilize our capacity and capability.
Okay, sir, thank you. The next question is from Suchitra Sharma, and her question is, can we focus on localization or globalization?
I think we need to look first how China has developed. I think Chinese model has been a very good example that you have to develop your local needs and then only you have to globalize. You cannot become global and then come to local. Trickle down theory in any society has not worked. That yes, first there will be rich and then it will trickle. No, there is always danger of monopolization in the world. And therefore, I think we need a very, very cautious and a combined approach that we should look to the local and then become global.
Okay, very good. Thank you, sir. A question from Anwar Hussain, a student of the Department of Economics, Rabindra University, Bangladesh. And his question is, how the globalization is affecting the South Asia youths?
The whole, actually, you know, the lecture was this, that if you understand, one thing is that if you understand, there are two ways to understand. One is what it is and why it is. I was explaining the whole process of globalization, how the process of colonization has divided the society, and that has created animosity between, you know, people. How Pakistan, how India, how Bangladesh, how Nepal, all these youths are actually, you know, divided into regions in different countries, in different polities. So I think globalization has actually affected by taking away, immediate reason, by taking away their jobs. That is one of the worst thing. Because there are now more foreign trained people, those who are managing the financial aspects of the people. There are people, financial resources where industries have come from abroad and they have reduced the industrialists in the country as only suppliers. So this is the way they have affected youth negatively.
Okay, very good, sir. The next question is from Jahur Ahmed. And his question is, what are the hazards of globalization? What are the problems of globalization?
Hazards of globalization is that it is tilted toward Western societies, Western institutions, IMF, World Bank, WTO, all favor the Western countries. And there is no level playing field. Whatever technologies are already there, we try to import and then we start playing to their gallery. So instead of that, the countries should start strengthening themselves. Why is it that 99 countries of the world only joined process of globalization? Rest are still not ready. Yes.
Okay, sir. The next question is from an anonymous audience. He has not mentioned his name. The question is globalization increasing inequality among the South Asian countries?
It is a foregone conclusion, of course. We know that. It has increased the inequality. We know that there are only, 100 people in the Forbes list from India who are billionaire, but 95% of the people live on 5 rupees only. So you can understand that how the trade deficits, if you take trade deficits, how it is tilted towards certain countries. So what is the contribution made to the state run universities? It is reducing day by day. So if the state university funding is reduced, that means actually poor people cannot do the state universities. They will have to go to private university, and private university will charge more. So it is a process of globalization.
Okay, sir. The next question is, which country is getting more benefit from globalization in South Asia?
Of course, actually, you see, If you go by the monetary aspects, I think, of course, it is India, because it is a big population. It was already prepared to face. There were industrialists already, and there was also universities which have actually created in 1960s and 70s. And therefore, the people in Silicon Valley, if you see how are Indians, dominating in Silicon Valley. If you take doctors and engineers in UK, the Indians who are there. So globalization as a process has helped India as far as certain section of the society. But it has created, within the country, it has created greater divide, digital divide and economic divide, both.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. There are a lot of questions, but the time is going on. We have already about more than 1.5 hours. So thank you so much, all the audience. We are very sorry that we have not picked all of your questions because we have the time limitation. And our Professor Vivek Kumar has given you the answer. I have tried to pick that questions who are general questions who are coming from the different participants. So I hope you all have got the answers of all types of questions. And I think this session was very interesting and attractive as well with his rigorous presentation of Professor Vivek Kumar. And thank you so much for joining a webinar organized by BK School of Research. I want to say something a little bit about BK School of Research. BK School of Research is a research firm which works with the global researchers. Now about 30 researchers of the different countries of the world now working with BK School of Research. So the main function of BK School of Research is to doing research, training, arranging seminar, workshop, and the youths and the interested economists, business fields from business, economics, sociology, and the different disciplines of social science, you can join in the different seminar workshop arranged by the BK School of Research. We are continuously arranging different types of webinars, so you can join. And I hope Professor Vivek Kumar's presentation was really awesome. And thank you so much, Professor. And you have given your valuable time to us, and we are very grateful to you. And I would like to invite you to visit Bangladesh if the world is become free from pandemic. And I hope you will give time us in future for this types of webinar. And I would like to say something for the very last moment, Professor Vivek Kumar.
No, I think I thank you so much, Bijon, for giving me this opportunity to interact with the worldwide audience. I do not know how many people were there. How many people were there last attending? You told some.
It's 2,700 people registered.
Registered, okay. And how many people came?
It is live program, so I see more than 500 people are watching till now.
Okay, till now. So that means thank you so much for actually the global audience, because I think, we usually don't get this type of interaction. And I think Bijon, thank you so much. And I also thank your colleagues, your institution, that really keeps this appetite of knowledge. It is very important, because if the knowledge is disseminated to the world, I think that is what is more important, rather than actually keeping knowledge to oneself. If the world emerges with knowledge, and I think if India and Bangladesh unitedly, or many other countries come together and give the world a lesson that, look, we are trying to educate the masses. That I think is very important. So you have done a wonderful job. I think I congratulate you. I congratulate your team and your institution. And I wish you all the best, that you keep on doing this good work forever. So people live only by education, but some people live for education also. So I think you are living for education. Congratulations, and wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, sir, for your appreciating words. And thank you all the audience I especially like to thank the Honorable Chairman of the Department of Economics, Professor Varun Chandra Rai, and my colleagues, Professor Nazrul Islam, Professor Ariful Islam, Professor Sharmin Sultara, and Professor Pinky Rani De. And thank you all of my students and all the participants of the different countries of the world for joining with us. And I think it was a very wonderful session with Professor Kumar. And thank you so much. Now I am going to end this session here. Thank
you see how Kumar Bangladesh and how Kumar in India, they have.
Yeah, exactly, sir.
And we are not relatives. Tell them.
From India.
Yeah. Tell them we are not relatives. It is coincidence you met me.
Exactly, sir.
Okay.
There is a very coincidence between you and me.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Vivek Kumar, sir.
Thank you.